Hi, welcome to my channel. So today I am going to do a video just talking about the Dustlands trilogy. So I read this when I was way younger. I think I was about, I don't know, it was probably like 16 or 17 when I read it. And so it's been a few years. I'm in my 20s now. So yeah, it's been a while since I've read it, but I went back and I was like, you know what? I only read the first book and I never read them all. So I went back and I decided I wanted to read the whole trilogy. And this trilogy of books was interesting. It kept me entertained, but basically, it is about a girl named Saba and her family. They are living out in the desert. Oh, sorry, something just happened to my camera. But it's about these three people. It's Saba, her older brother, or no, they're twins. Okay, so it's her twin and her younger sister and her dad, and their mom has passed away, and so they are just living the best they can. And soon you get the feeling that this is like an apocalyptic situation. It's not like they just live out there. This is in the future or some alternate universe reality. But anyways, something happens. Her father gets attacked, some people get taken, and she has to go on a journey to go get these people back and to help her family. So I'm trying not to like spoil too much if you haven't read it or haven't heard of it. So basically, that's the premise. It's about a girl going to save people, save her family, and help her family. And the first book is really good. I love the character development. There's a lot of potential for better character development as well. They were just interesting and they felt a little more real than the next two books. But I'm just going to talk about the positive first. So, yeah, the characters are very interesting. Definitely people like that you'd like to have around you in the apocalypse, or in like a dystopian type of society slash apocalypse. And I don't think I mentioned the book is kind of like Western. Like I read the woman who wrote it. I say her name wrong, so I try not to say it. But she actually said it was supposed to be like a Western. She thought she might write it as like a second Ice Age type of book, but then she decided, no, I'm going to write it as kind of a Western, but apocalyptic, and I think that's really awesome. Um, but yeah, so I loved the main character's younger sister. I didn't like her in the first book as much, but as the books went on, I really started to like her. And that's great because having kids in books sometimes can be frustrating, because having a kid tag along and always be depending on the main character, it's a lot. It like can be exhausting to read about sometimes when they're trying to survive. And I love kids, but like reading about them in books is sometimes kind of frustrating, I guess. That sounds horrible. But yeah, so I really liked her younger sister. And I did not like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to talk about the positive first. So the world building was really cool. It wasn't super extensive. Like in the next two books, the first book, the world building is okay. It gets a little bit better in the next two. Um, it's very interesting. I just wish she had maybe talked about it a little more, about how like the world came to be like this, the way that it is, all dry and barren, because a lot of it is. A lot of the land is like just barren or bad and really dried up. But also just it was cool to see Saba, the main character, just walk through these old cities. They call them wrecker cities, which would be us, I guess. So just the generations who have died and who created technology that basically destroyed the world. So I guess that's kind of the explanation. Maybe there was like a big fallout, or our technology just got too big and there was something big that happened, maybe like a war. It's not clear, but I think to the main character, it's also not clear why the world is the way it is. Which I do like that. I do like that she was born into this world, and so it makes her a very strong and independent person, and that's something else I loved about her. She was very independent, um, and yeah, I mean, it was a character that I had like so high hopes for, but then I'm gonna get into some of the bad stuff I didn't like. So I said I like character, I like the world. I did not like how I don't know how to say this. I don't like how she treated other people. I know she had to learn how to treat people, but you would have thought that maybe she would get better at it as time went on, like have a character arc or development, and she did to an extent, but I feel like as soon as she did have a little bit of a breakthrough and start being like nicer, um, the love interest started being colder and like going backwards, and I didn't like that because he was already messed up too. He had his problems, so he should have had some kind of character arc, some kind of development, but it seemed like he just developed into like an asshole. So I didn't like that. Also, I hope that's not like a spoiler. That's just my personal opinion. I didn't like him in the next two books. He was kind of a jerk, and I also didn't like what she did with like the love triangle. I didn't mind the love triangle. I just didn't like how it played out, because there's a little bit of that going on in the second and third book, and the way that it's played out is just not enough, and it went too quick. And I feel like the last book was also very rushed, and the middle book felt a little too much like a filler book. There wasn't a whole lot going on, so I didn't like that. I felt like this book, I kept reading it very quickly and very rapidly, just very, I was like, I have to know what happens. And even at work, if there was any spare time, I would like read it. So, and sometimes there is where I work, we have some spare time. So I was like constantly trying to read this book. And it was just because I thought that something good was going to happen, but so many times it didn't, or it didn't play out the way that I think it should have. I'm trying not to give stuff away, but yeah, I'm gonna skip on into a spoilery review in just a second, but I'll tell you when that happens. Just in conclusion, I do really like the first book, and I think it's worth the read, even if you don't read the next two, because I went years without reading the next two because the first book was just, it was good and really could have ended there. So yeah, I don't think that it's something bad. It just was a little disappointing at the very end of the trilogy for me. I feel like it could have been done a little bit better. In saying that, though, Myra, however you say her name, Young is, I think she's still a very good author. I think her writing style was really cool. The way that it's written is written. Saba is illiterate and she can't read and she can't write. So it's written like someone like that would talk, being raised by people who also can't read and write, and maybe also how they would spell things. And it's more in the first book than this next two, so that makes it a little bit difficult to read, but it's still, I believe, worth it, the first book. The next two, you know, they're okay. That's your choice whether you want to read it. Let me know what you thought about it, the whole series, because just, I'm not sure. I don't know how to feel. I know I like the first book and that's it. So I'm going to get into a little bit of a spoilery review. So if you don't want to watch that, I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching my video. Okay, so in this spoilery review, I'm going to talk about Saba, and mostly just in the last book. So the first book, I loved her as a character. She could have been a little less bitchy. She was kind of too mean sometimes. It was almost like, oh, I love her, she's so interesting, and then I'm like, do I? Do I love her? She's kind of a jerk to everyone. um, but as it went on, like I started to like her more. I did like that she was very self sufficient, like she was independent, and she's not gonna like complain too much. Emmy in the first book, though, her complaining really got on my nerves. Like I said, in the second book, got a lot better, and in the third. But also in the second book, I just feel like when her and Jack meet at the end, he just seems cold to me. It seems like their meeting was pointless. It seemed like, why did she go through all this trouble to help him when he clearly doesn't want her help anymore? It's like it was building up to this big thing of him like, I need your help, come find me. And it was building up to something big happening, and then it didn't happen not really. There was like that big explosion at the end, and the one girl died, uh, sacrificed herself for everyone to like get away, for Saba to get away. But then Jack stayed there and was like, I'm going to stay here. And then all of a sudden he's like, no, I'm going to go after her. I'm going to go after her and talk to her and then go back. It was just very confusing in that second book. If you've read this book, I'm sorry, I'm saying this is a spoilery review, but if you haven't read this book, what I'm saying right now probably makes no sense. So this is for people who've read it. So anyways, at the end of the second book, she goes to find Jack because they separate her and the love interest in the first. And you would think that their reunion would be great because their romance was great in the first book, or at least it seemed like it was budding, it was building to something beautiful. No. In that second book, they blow up a part of this compound, and then he's like, just go on without me. You know I said I need your help, but I really don't because you clearly don't want to be here, even though she does want to be here, Jack, because she came to find you and she loves you, but whatever. And then he changes his mind and he's like, I'm going to go talk to her after she's already escaped and possibly lead other soldiers to her because he's like impersonating a soldier in order to infiltrate the bad people, basically. And the bad people are not nearly bad enough in this. They're bad, but their ideology is so easily broken down in the third book that it was too easy. It was too easy to defeat these people, and these people didn't really believe in what they were doing anyways. And to be fair, the ideology was easy to break down probably because it hadn't been around very long. They took him down immediately after he got on the throne, the bad guy, DeMallo. Or Seth, that's his name. He got on the throne after the king was killed. And I know I'm not making a lot of sense. In the first book, the king was killed, who ruled over this apocalyptic land, and his personal guard, took over and had this ideology that Saba broke down very quickly, so people didn't have to live in oppression, and it was just done too easily. And also this horrible scene where she loses her sister, and her sister was doing something that Saba was going to do anyway, so she didn't have to risk herself in the way she did. Her younger sister, who I had begun to like, and whose character arc was getting up there and she was about to have one, and then she died. And then right after her brother dies and they were fighting, her brother also betrayed her after she saved him in the first book. And then she has a miscarriage because she was pregnant with the bad guy who has this evil ideology. She was pregnant with his child. All this happened in the span of a few hours for her. And then Jack, her love interest, finds her and he's like, come with me, I'll help you. And she's like, she reveals to him that right before she has her miscarriage, she reveals to him, but he saw her brother die and he saw her sister die. He knows that they are dead and that she needs help. And he says, I'll help you. And she says, I had relations with the bad guy. And he's like, oh, did you? Well, he's coming right now and I can't forgive you for that. So I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave you here with your dead brother in your arms. Am I supposed to like him after this? No, because even if someone, I don't know, had sex with someone you didn't like, that even if they're evil, I mean, clearly he has manipulated hundreds of people, and he manipulated her in a way. She was a bit weak at the moment that they had their little fling, but Jack is still like, I know he's a manipulator and he's evil, but I'm gonna leave you to him because he's coming to get you right now and I gotta go. And then she has a miscarriage. Like, 2 betrayals, 3 deaths, just at the end of that book. And then somehow she is able to function enough to overcome these things and kill the bad guy, which I understand. Like, yeah, she probably could have killed him. She had a lot of rage in her. But right away, it was like a few days later, I think, or like 2 days later, she's like, oh, I think I feel well enough and I've grieved enough where I can do this. it was just very rushed. And then Jack leaves again. He's like, thanks for killing that guy. Um, but I'm not even going to tell you goodbye. I'm just going to go. And she goes after him. And she's like, no, I want to be with you, even though you've kind of betrayed me too. You've been horrible to me. So that was the end of the book. And it was horrible. I still like the first book, but the next two, it was like someone else wrote them, kind of. I mean, it was still well written to an extent, but it was just like, it was like Young's alter ego wrote it or something, the next two books. So I just didn't appreciate them. I'll never read those two books again. I'm definitely not gonna buy the series. Sometimes if I like a book enough, I'll go out and buy it. I won't just get it from the library. Um, but not this one. That's not gonna happen. So all in all, I like the first book. I don't think the second two are worth the read. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna make another video soon where I go to my local library and just pick out some random books without looking. And I hope that's interesting enough that you watch that too. So I'll see you next time. Bye.